Dr. James J.C. Cooley. That's right. Dr. James J.C. Cooley. That's right.
The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life, can be heard every Sunday at 9 p.m. right here on The Answer San Diego. Life is full of circles, cycles, phases, and stages. It's your choice to ignore or embrace them. Motivational speaker, author, military veteran, and founder of the J.C. Cooley Foundation, James Cooley, and his guest will inspire and equip you to strive for your own greatness and overcome adversities. Listen to The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life, every Sunday at 9 p.m. right here on The Answer San Diego.
The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life, can be heard every Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on 660 AM The Answer in Dallas-Fort Worth. Life is full of circles, cycles, phases, and stages. It's your choice to ignore them or embrace them. Motivational speaker, author, military veteran, and founder of the J.C. Cooley Foundation, James Cooley, and his guests will inspire and equip you to strive for your own greatness and overcome adversities. Listen to The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life, every Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on 660 AM The Answer in Dallas-Fort Worth.
The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life, can be heard every Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on The Answer. Life is full of circles, cycles, phases, and stages. It's your choice to ignore or embrace them. Motivational speaker, author, military veteran, and founder of the J.C. Cooley Foundation, James Cooley and his guests will inspire and equip you to strive for your own greatness and overcome adversities. Listen to The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life, every Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on The Answer.
Yeah. Dr. James J.C. Cooley. The James Cooley Show. It's your life. Yeah.
Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show, It's Your Life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley. And wow, we're kicking this off. Black History Month. We got a lot of heavy hitters coming your way and starting today. This guest right here, I am looking forward to chatting with her. She is doing so many things. Educator, been an educator all her life. And, you know, I'm excited about this book that she just wrote. And I tell you, I'm not going to give it away because you all know how angry Dr. Michelle Cooley get if I try to steal her thunder. So I can't do that. First of all, how you doing, Dr. Cooley?
I'm fine, James. How are you?
I am doing just fine. Still trying to get over this cold or whatever you might want to call it. So just a little bit under the weather right now.
Yeah, but you know what? It's going to be okay. You're going to get over it really soon. But you know what? We're not going to get over. We're not going to get over the amazing guests that we have today. And we're celebrating Black History Month. And we're just so excited about this lineup this week. But we are kicking it off today with this amazing guest. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her.
Yeah, but wait. Let me tell you, whichever platform that you're watching us on, whether it's E360 Television, Transfer TV, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, welcome to the show. Or if you're listening to us on the radio, AM 660 The Answer, out of Dallas, AM 1170 The Answer, out of San Diego, FM 96.1 The Answer, out of San Diego, welcome to the show. Most important, if you want to be part of this great conversation that we're going to have with this young lady today, all you have to do is go to the platform that you're watching us on, go to the comments, ask any question that you might have. I promise you we'll get your answer. Michelle, I cannot take it no more. Can you please introduce the title of the show, purpose of the show, and introduce this absolutely fantastic guest?
Yes. So the title of today's show is called Making Do, Growing Up Colored in the Jim Crow South During the Great Depression. We're having a conversation with Josan Wright Callender. She's an educator, writer, author, producer, and publisher. She's going to talk a bit about how she became a writer and this amazing novel, which I just said was the title of the show, and what the goal and mission is of her novel, and how her novel provides a history with a face. So Ms. Callender has worked in the field of special education for both the Detroit Public Schools and Los Angeles Unified School Districts for 29 years, including the areas of homebound or hospitalized, chronically ill, classroom teaching for students with a wide variety of eligibilities, including physical impairments, specific learning disabilities, and autism. Her creative interest in developing visual education methods in her practice led to pursuing a career in film production. She took classes with former Disney filmmaker Bill Blanchard at Lansing Community College, was an associate producer at WTVS Channel 56 in Detroit, and was part of the writing team that won local Emmys for its award-winning production, semifinalist, Walt Disney Studios Fellowship Program. And you know what? She co-produced One Down, winner of the Charleston World Film Festival and the Lansing Film Festival, produced Air Conditioners First Contact, a film by one of her students with special needs, created Matt Joe International LLC, a publishing company for inspirational books and materials for young adults, including the series Believe, Tuskegee Strong, Making Do, Growing Up Colored in the Jim Crow South During the Great Depression. And this is the title of the topic today. And please welcome to the show, Josan Wright Callender.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Josan, I mean, I've been reading your book, and I tell you, I think it should be a novel. I think it should be a movie. I think a lot of things should be a part of this. So, First of all, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and to talk about this. I mean, because a lot of people do not understand the Jim Crow era or any of that stuff right there. And a lot of folks that's non-Black think that this is something that's been made up, and no, it wasn't that bad. We gave them a little something, this, that, and all that. They should not be complaining. We're going to tell them the truth today.
Okay, yes.
We're going to tell them the truth. So when we come back here and listen to a little bit more about you, where you grew up, what made you click, why you're so passionate about the work, education, and writing books and movies and all those type of things.
Well, thank you. First, from your mouth to God's ears about that becoming a movie, because my friends and my inspirational writing team have said this before, as well as a close friend of mine, Phyllis Kelly, who's the narrator of the audiobook that's out. So thank you. But where I grew up, well, I could honestly say that I did not grow up in the Jim Crow South. My parents did. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, 60s, mainly 50s, 60s. So I've been around a bit. And my parents were the type of people that lived through the Jim Crow South in the 40s. My dad served in World War II, and then moved up to Detroit to work in the auto industry, like so many people did after the war. And their purpose was to always tell us their story. So it's like that narrative, just like the griots of Africa. They were always telling us their oral tradition of sharing their history with us. And I learned a lot because for instance, my mother told me some stories that were fairy tales. And I went to the library, the bookmobile, to get the book because I was so excited about it. And the librarian said, we don't have a book by that title or anything like that. And I went home and I said, Mom, where did you get that story from? She said, I made that up. And so that was how I was introduced to a narrative, making up narratives. My mother was a great storyteller. Her mother and her grandfather also were storytellers. So I grew up in Detroit listening to their stories, my mother and father's stories. And they were so interesting that I just said, wow, I could, almost feel being back there trying to catch that chicken and, the eggs in the coop, it was just like, okay. And then my dad with his mule, I can't remember the name of the mule, but he said the mule was so ornery that he had to, really work hard to keep it on track. But, so they told me their stories. My dad grew up in the country, Billingsley, Alabama. My mother grew up in the city in Alabama, Bessemer. So they both had different narratives, but it was still pretty agricultural in both locations. So me growing up as a city girl, these are really interesting stories. And so that's basically my background. And they fueled my interest in becoming a teacher because I love school. And so they always said, get your education. So that was the foundation of everything that happened after that.
So Josan, what you just did, you brought back memories because I know you done read my book, and I actually, the chickens going out and getting the chicken, Jen, like, hey, we're gonna have chicken. You gotta go out there and catch one of them chickens. all that stuff. Yeah. It's real, and we tell people about this, and they're like, "No, you could not. You was not." It's 1965, 1966.
Mm-hmm.
It happened. So I was reading in your book, and you just mentioned this, that your mom used to come in and read to you all and at night and tell you these stories. You just brought this up, and you mentioned that you went to the library looking for this. Your mom had to be a great, great storyteller. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Oh my goodness, she was so good. And it was just like, like breathing the air. She would come and tell stories just at the drop of the hat. And we would, she says, if you don't get in bed, I'm not going to tell you a story. So we'd hop in the bed and like, okay, what's going to be tonight? And then I found out that she was the storyteller, or her sisters, because she was like the third oldest, became the third oldest of the family. But then she had like about 5 other siblings that grew up listening to her tell stories. And so I said, oh, she's had a lot of experience. And so, the stories are so good that I said, Mom, why didn't you write any of these down? And she said, oh, I'm not a writer. I'm more like a storyteller. So with encouragement, she started writing them down a bit more. And the Happy Little Garbage Truck was one that I co-wrote with her. And I said, Mom, there's not any stories about garbage trucks. She said, no, make one up. So that was that's who she was.
Wow, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a station break, but I cannot wait to get back because I want to hear a lot more of these stories. I want to talk about her book. I want to talk about Jim Crow. I want our viewers and listeners to understand what that is. And so if you want to be part of this conversation, just go to the platform that you're watching us on, the comments area. Ask any question that you might have. I promise you we'll get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
The James Cooley Show. It's your life. That's right.
A Black Man's Point of View is the newest Amazon.com #1 release and bestseller book from author Dr. James J.C. Cooley, featuring the perspective from 11 other contributing authors. In A Black Man's Point of View, Dr. James Cooley unpacks his thoughts and personal experiences about the challenges, stereotypes, and feelings of self-worth that many black men face today due to a 400-year ancestry rooted in slavery and colonization. Yet, how so many black men move forward despite this history. Most importantly, A Black Man's Point of View conveys that all men, regardless of race, creed, or color, are capable of love, respect, and dignity. Described as a map to a greater life from the heart of a man who's experienced life's misfortune and harsh conditions, James shows us how beliefs, convictions, and a healthy mentality can help propel a life worth living. A must-read for all. Order your copy of A Black Man's Point of View by author Dr. James J.C. Cooley today from Amazon.com or wherever books are sold.
Noah Dingley here, producer of The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life. And the new audio version of James' book, Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet, is a must-have. James shares his true life story of struggle and success in America. It's both a cautionary tale and a roadmap to achieving the American dream. Get the new audio version of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James Cooley on Amazon.com or wherever audiobooks are sold.
It's the James Cooley Show. It's your life. Dr. James J.C. Cooley. Yeah. Come on.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I tell you, this absolutely fantastic guest, got me thinking. Because I was reading her book, and it's actually fantastic, and a lot of things that she write in the book, telling the story. I think her mother. I remember doing a lot of those things in the South, and our name of the book is Making Do. The title of the show is Growing Up Colored in the Jim Crow South During the Great Depression. And a lot of folks don't even know what Jim Crow is, what Jim Crow laws are, or how that affected us. I'm talking about African Americans as a whole. And so, Josan, can you please tell our viewers and listeners, what is the Jim Crow era?
Yeah, well, I'm by no means an expert, but I could honestly say that from what I've researched and from what my parents shared with me, it was a period of time post-slavery and pre-civil rights. I would put it up to that point where there were millions of emancipated people running around looking for jobs, trying to get out of the slavery conditions of those plantations, trying to go where they heard jobs were available up north. But at the same time, there was this movement to keep the Black people from experiencing true freedom, and they were able to receive freedom from the Emancipation Proclamation and those laws that were instated. And I'm not really well versed on which laws they were, but I think it was the 14th and 15th Amendment. Oh. But the thing that I found interesting, because my parents, they could only tell me what they experienced, but when I did some research on it, I found out it basically started gaining ground when the federal soldiers were withdrawn from some of those southern states that had slavery. And as they were just withdrawn abruptly, the governance of those states tried to reinstate what they had with slavery. And so it was like you can only get into certain places. You were not allowed in certain places. Like I was reading about Louisiana, they had legislatures that were Black, but pretty soon they were phased out and they replaced them with white legislatures. So that the actual laws were set up to benefit people who didn't really want Black people to get ahead. And there was one incident, I cannot remember exactly which book I was reading, but a legislature was being outed because he had, in Louisiana, because he had Black blood. And someone who was trying to get the law passing, we're going to tell, who your grandparents were. So, it's sort of like causing friction because no one wanted to be associated with that part of the Americans. It's our history. But those who, and those, I can't remember what someone had made a comment about our history is everyone's history because families are so intermarried and we came from both white, Black, slave, because women were taken and they were forced to have children in the plantation days. And so we have like this mixed race. And my uncle said it best, he's a man of God. And he said, there's no race. There's only the human race. And I said, he was a biologist too. And I said, okay, I can take that and run with it. But the whole thing about Jim Crow is not accepting that part of our humanity, but trying to put people down based on the color of their skin, which is why, I love Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. saying, based on your character, not the color of your skin, that, we want to be accepted based on the
character of the person.
The character. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our character, and not the color. Yes.
One of the things I want to do. One of the things that I want to do is I probably should have done this earlier because I want to dive deep off into this. I'm talking about your introduction that you had sent. Here we go.
Good morning. I'm Josan Wright Callender, the author of Making Do, Growing Up Colored in the Jim Crow South During the Great Depression. And the series is Believe, Tuskegee Strong. And that title that banner has a lot to do with the interview that's coming up on Monday, this Monday coming, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to be on It's Your Life, which is emceed by Dr. J.C. Cooley, who has had an incredible life, growing up in the South and the city. He said his book is Country Boy, City Boy, The Journey Ain't Over Yet. And I'm listening to the audiobook. It is pretty incredible. So I recommend that book, audiobook or hardcover. It's pretty amazing. And so he is interviewing me about Believe, Tuskegee Strong. And he said, what would you call your interview? And I said, I think I'd say it's a subtitle is A Legacy of Faith Equals a Legacy of Resilience. And that's where the belief comes in Tuskegee Strong, because my parents have such great faith in God that they shared that with us. And we, in our own journeys, developed our, because you can't have a generational, you can't hand on to someone else your faith. It has to be a felt and learned experience of oneself. And I think through life, that faith is amplified and just solidified, I guess is the best term. And my faith in God is that. And I attribute that to my parents because of what they went through in the 1940s, just living their life post, right in the middle of the Great Depression, which they were born, and then they were living through it. And then after World War II, that was considered the end of the Great Depression. You read stories about how people were starving and not having enough to eat. And finally, when the war started, these guys went into the army in droves. One, it was a world conflict, and two, the army paid, and they could send money back to their families, and they could also.
Wow, that's amazing. A narrative. But Jason, writing this book and hearing the stories from your family, what were the challenges, if any, that you faced in writing it? And did it kind of make you aware of things that you haven't thought about in a while, or just the enormity of what went on during that time?
Well, it was a challenge because one, like my mother, I had never written anything, and I didn't start writing until pretty much I was working at a law office, and there were a group of writers, and this was in Los Angeles, a group of writers that were writing for Saturday Night Live and different, big name producers, but they did this night job as the work area. But they would work on legal documents at night, and it allowed them to make some money while they were doing their joy job during the day. But I was inspired because I wanted to tell this one story, which goes back to your question of, was it the heart? First, I wanted to share this incident that happened with me in my past, and second, I want to see if I could write. And they loved it. So this little incident that I wrote about as a little script was going down south in the mid 60s. No, it was like 63. So it was before civil rights. And how my parents would take off from Detroit and just drive straight down. And my mother would fry chicken and biscuits and have them all in this one tin. And my sisters and I laugh about how the biscuits taste like fried chicken and the pound cake tastes like fried chicken because everything was, together in this one container. And then there would be a pot in the back. And so if we had to use the bathroom, you had to use the pot, and they dump it out. They'd pull on the side of the road. And while I was writing that story, it just dawned on me. I said, wait a minute. I thought it was like a road trip, and this is what everybody did. But I called my mother. I said, did you guys not stop because of Jim Crow? She says, yeah. We thought you guys, you were too little to really understand what was going on. So we didn't want you to be exposed to that. And it was like, I was an adult. I had never thought about it. But as I was recounting that story, it dawned on me, and it was like a big aha moment. And and that told me a lot more about my parents' thought process, because they said, we can't even explain this. So why expose you to it, to have those negative thoughts, about, being down south, which, as it were, there was still some negativity that you could feel, but you didn't know as a kid what was going on. But they wanted us to keep our minds positive and clear of any of the negativity. And they did this to keep us pure and focused on what God can do and not on what was going around in the world, so things that we couldn't really control or change, just keeping our minds focused on God and what he was doing, getting us back together with family.
Wow. What has been the reaction from your family and close friends regarding the book?
Many have really, really loved it. Some said, well, this is not really what happened to, mom and dad. I said, yeah, I know, I changed it because as I started writing it, this was another thing that made it really difficult. My mom had come to live with me, and we were kind of going through different scenes that could happen in the story. And then I got to a certain section. I said, well, what happened then? She said, I honestly can't remember. And so I said, well, if I make something up with that, but she says, yeah, I can't remember anyway. So, make something. So I started, kind of ad-libbing on certain sections. And then I was talking also to other relatives who had really key pieces happening in their life. And I said, oh, this should be in the story too. So I just said, after a while, it's going to be a novelized version of what happened to them, because that way I can pull in experiences of different contemporaries. I would look up things in the archives to find out how people dealt with certain situations and just kind of started folding it all into this story. So yeah, so there was some pushback because it wasn't really what happened, but I was just, like trying to make it more interesting.
Wow. I don't even want to take the station break, but I got to. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the station break. And if you want to be part of this conversation, all you have to do is just go to the platform that you're watching us on, ask them a question that you might have. I promise you, we'll get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
Let's go, let's go, let's go. It's the James Cooley Show. It's your life. Doctor, James, JC, Cooley. All right.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, there is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? And everything that you do. Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I tell you, this is such a great discussion. I didn't say interview. A great discussion because we all are learning, and I can see it in Michelle's eyes. She's learning too, so much. I know I am, and I lived through a lot of things that we're talking about before it's growing up. The pot in the car, the pot in the house, the house, and we had a mule named Red that did all the carrying of the wood and this and that, and I want to hear so much more about all of those things because I tell you, Josan, the way you explaining this, and obviously your mother and your father, they just laid it out to you all that this is how it was, and being growing up in the city, like, oh no, everybody had a bathroom in their house.
Yeah,
everybody they could just go out and just buy food, but it wasn't like that. I want to pick this conversation back up. What we're talking about, in case you're just tuning in, we're talking about her new book, which I love, and you all need to go out and get this one. I mean, immediately. Making Do, Growing Up Colored in the Jim Crow South during the Great Depression. And what she's talking about is her parents, the stories that her parents shared with her about growing up like in that era, and also how that affected her in growing up, and her brothers and her sisters. And the story have to be told. This is a novel right here. This is a masterpiece. And I'm telling you, I highly encourage everyone to go out and get this. And when you make the movie, I want to be a character in the movie.
I'll take my people. God willing, someone is hearing this and it's taking it to the next level. Thank you.
So I want to pick it back up because Michelle asked you a question, and I kind of think it kind of threw you back a little bit. Michelle, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Can you re-ask that question, because that was absolutely fantastic. I know we didn't complete it because we had to go to the break.
Well, I asked Josan about the challenges. Were there any challenges in writing the book, and how did her family feel about the novel? So I think that was the question. How did your family and close friends feel about the novel? And then you just gave me the feedback that you received from them.
Yes. Yeah, it was an amalgamation of my parents' story plus the historical documents that I had found about the different characters in the story, like George Washington Carver, Dr. George Washington Carver, and Dr. Booker T. Washington. And so as I was looking into the Tuskegee Institute section, actually my husband and I went to the Tuskegee Institute, and we're just really impressed with. Later on, I found out that the students made the bricks that they laid the buildings. They made up the buildings, and I said they made a kiln, and they just fired all those bricks. And I said, this is just too amazing. And it was at the time when not a whole lot of people wanted to put money into higher education for Blacks, but Booker T. Washington would go from state to state doing talks and raising money, and then coming back and building up that Tuskegee Institute. So I learned a lot in putting the book together, and I was trying to educate. I love your know your past and shape your future. I said I wanted to help young adults, and especially in the Black community, know their past. And this is all of our past, as we're a tapestry, a country of so many different ethnicities, that this is all of our past. It's our history.
You know what, Josan, there's a lot of people in this country who don't want to relive the truth about what happened in the past. They've taken things out of our textbooks in school, what we teach, but in the library, and even some of our own people of color. Some might not want to relive the past because they're thinking about what's going on today, the freedoms they have today. But what is your thoughts on denying the past and not, I would say, not understanding what really happened? Basically, if you don't face the truth, that's not going to be a good thing. So just basically, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Bible says, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And that's what I keep coming back to in my writing. When I was taking writing classes with the Writers Guild of America, they had different workshops. And I remember vividly, this one writer said, you have a responsibility. He says, as a writer, part of that is you have the ability to respond to what you see from your perspective. And you have a responsibility to share that with others. And then also as a teacher, I said, wow, that's pretty deep, because as a teacher, I feel a keen responsibility to help educate young adults, and especially all of my students. I was a teacher of special needs students, but in my classroom, I always took the high ground and said to the parents, the reason why we're teaching this, because it wasn't really in a lot of special ed classrooms that they would do things that I did. I said, I'm teaching this because the students need to be exposed to this, and then would help their understanding of other concepts. So, we did plays, Greek dramas, and the kids would act out the Theseus and the Minotaur, and they had such a kick out of it, and the parents would come and be our audience. So, so I think that uplifting all races from our history is what all races, I said, it's human race, but all ethnicities, what our history is about, and it is interwoven with so many different wonderful pieces, and some that aren't so great. But we have to look at it all, because remember that phrase that if you, those who don't know their history have the possibility of repeating it.
Yes.
So I said that is scary, and I don't want to be part of that equation, just by being blinded, by not wanting to look at things, but looking at them with the mind of, like I said, the mind of Christ. What does this mean? How can I use this information to keep me on a road that's going to be one that would increase my ability to be, what God has given me as his steward, what can increase my ability to use my gifts to the highest level. So,
wow. How has your faith strengthened and inspired you, not only in writing this book, but also, being an educator and, teaching your students despite, challenges you may face during the process?
You have such great questions, Dr. Michelle. Thank you. That one I love, because, the challenge that I faced in writing, first of all, was just in writing, because I had never written anything before. So that's why I started with a happy little garbage truck. I said, let me see what the process of writing this picture book could be. And that was giving me more and more courage to tackle the story about my parents, because I had wanted to write this story since the mid 80s, but I didn't feel confident in, being able to tell the story. And it was such a, they were my heroes, and I did not want to tell a story in a way that put them in a light that, or not tell it in a way that it's not clear as to what I was trying to say either. So I studied the process of writing. And then finally, when I felt confident enough, like I said, this one incident with the writers, the word processors that were writers, that my writing was getting some interest in this group of writers that I shared it with. That's when I started writing Making Do, growing up colored in the Jim Crow South during the Great Depression. But I actually started it as my mother being a 6-year-old. And so that was the first hurdle, because when I was talking with some of the writers, representatives, they said, who's this for? I said, for young adults. And they said, you can't have a character 6 years old, right? Because you have to start with her in high school. So that's what brought me to writing it as my mom's senior year. And that was what she said, well, I can't remember everything that happened. She said, go ahead, make some things up. As long as so, I was true to her thought process, but, I did create other incidents that may or may not have happened.
Wow. So one of the things as a writer myself, right? Mm-hmm. Some of the things I have to do before I write a book, I had to get in the right headspace for myself. Sometimes it's meditation and understanding what I'm going to write about. I mean, I go by what we call the what
why, when, and how. What? The first what is what, or the title, or what's this? The second what is what do you want the audience to get from your writing? The why is this important to them? How are you going to do it? And when are you going to do it? And then conclusion. All of those things that I learned in telling a story and writing a story is so important. And that's what I get from here, because I understand, I know that you had to have went by that philosophy in order to put a masterpiece together like this. We got about a minute before the show. What are your thoughts?
Well,
a minute before the break.
Okay. I was thinking, you're absolutely right. I started writing this, just jumped into it. And then I was talking with my friend, Phyllis Kelly, who's the narrator of the audiobook. I said, I just don't know how to bring this story around to what I really intended. She says, did you pray about it? And I said, oh my goodness, I did not. She says, well, most times when you're tackling something really big, you have to start getting your mind ready. And through prayer is how I do it. And I said, I don't know why I didn't think so. Definitely. Prayer was the one thing that shaped the story. And every time I hit a corner or a wall, I would start praying over it. And says, how is this going to be instrumental in giving my students hope? So that was, thank you.
And prayer, just like I said, mindset comes with prayer, at least with me. I won't do anything.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, if I get the answer back and I don't follow suit with it, it's not going to come out right. So prayer, and you right. We're going to take a station break. I can talk to you all day long. We're going to take a station break. If you want to be part of the conversation, all you have to do, go to the platform that you're watching this on. Ask any question that you might have. I promise you, we'll get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
Dr. James, JC, Cooley. The James Cooley Show. It's your life.
Dr. James J.C. Cooley from the United States of America, and I am here to just say, first of all, I'm so happy and honored to be to be in the Coffee Book 2023, Unified Brain Z and the other organizations. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this collection.
The James Cooley Show. Hold up. It's your life. Hold up.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I am thoroughly, I'm talking about 1,000,000% enjoying this discussion.
Same here.
That I'm having with this great educator, this great writer, this great producer, this great person.
Thank you.
This great person.
Thank you.
I just want to say again, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and accepting. Dr. JJ, she hit a home run. she always, right. And I hope she's watching the show.
I hope so too.
Yeah,
she's amazing. You're so right.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure she's watching the show, and she is going to be on again real soon. We got a brother coming on.
Yes.
In a couple of days, and we talked to him today. I am interested in his conversation, but I want to get back to you. This great book. When did you know that you hit a home run?
Well, I can't honestly say that I knew personally, but when I had a sense about it was 2 different times. First, my mother had gone with me to these biography writing classes when she lived with me. And she wasn't feeling well then, but she still, went to the classes. And towards the end of the major class that we were in, she said, this is going to be a bestseller. I said, what? She says, oh yeah, I really believe. So my mother has since passed, but not long after that class. And, like I said, she and my dad were my heroes. But then Phyllis Kelly, who's the narrator of the audiobook, said, this is going to be a bestseller, Josan. I said, that's what Mom told me. And she says, well, yeah. So, that's what we're aspiring to. Like Dr. JJ, she's already had her bestseller. I said, Dr. JJ, I want my bestseller book as well. And so I said, and then when she told me about your program, I said, oh, I'd love to be on that program. So it's like, it's out there.
What she told me, she said, JC, this author, good friend of mine, all that, and you want to get her on the show. And, of course, I'm kind of curious pretty much with everything, but when just chatting with her and just getting an understanding of her, it's like, wow, this woman is so positive. I mean, she's so straightforward. Absolutely. We would do it no cost.
Yeah, she is that. Definitely. She's, what a talented family. My goodness. So, yeah, you're very blessed to have met her and to have her brother on as well this week.
Wow.
Excellent.
And just with you meeting her, she referring you, Michelle and I'm gonna be real with you. We're ecstatic. Personality, your work, whatever we can do to promote that, we will do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we got a lot of guests coming on this week. Might be able to help push this out because I don't want this to end on this show. I want to continue to push it out. So.
Thank you so much.
But I have to ask you this question, which normally I ask in the beginning. After getting an opportunity for the last 54 minutes to know you, what adjective? I'm telling you. What adjective would you pick out and every word in dictionary, whatever, to describe you, to describe your personality, to describe what you are conveying to our viewers and our listeners? I know I caught you off guard on that.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I watched one of your programs where you asked that question. It says, I'm going to have my adjective ready. And then I forgot which one it was. So let me think of what was it? I would say I'm faithful. I want to be known as a faithful person to what God is doing, because I wouldn't be here without His help and His power within me. So I want to be faithful to God. That's how I want to be. It's maybe not the best adjective. It is not an adjective.
No. That is probably one of the best adjectives. And I tell you, and I'll be real with you, after what I went through, and you read my book, listened to a lot of faithful, honesty, integrity, and ethics is what I came up with. So I came up with all three of those. And that's how me and Michelle live our life with that right there. And because we done been through a lot. God done pulled us through it. Our whole world is about making sure that we are honest and we have integrity and we ethics in everything that we do. Otherwise, we won't do it.
Thank you. Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. It's a huge part.
So we got about 2.5 minutes in the show. First of all, I want to say that I got to have you back on the show. I had to have you back on our cost. What are 3 takeaways that you want our viewers and our listeners to get from this interview, and also about how can they get this great book? You got to tell them. You got to tell them.
Well, of course it's on Amazon, and but I would love for people to order it from my own store, mattjointl.com. And it's international, abbreviated Matt Joe. And Matt Joe were the first couple of letters in my mother Maddie's name and my father Joseph. So the company had to have both of their names in it. And then they order it from the company, then I can autograph the book because it'll be from my own stock. But it's available Malik Bookstore in LA, Barnes and Nobles, and then the audiobook will be on Amazon soon, but right now it's on the Nook, Walmart's, I can't think of I had it right here. Well, it's definitely available at Walmart and also Google Play. Those are the 3 big ones that I can remember. But it just came out, I'd say the middle part of December, and we're expanding the platforms for the audiobook. But the novel, I'm working on volume 2, and I'm hoping that will come out by perhaps the end of this year. I want to make sure it's good.
Wow. Michelle, you got some closing remarks?
I know. We just want to say that we appreciate you taking time to come on the show today and tell us about your novel and just educating the audience about what Jim Crow laws really are. Because some of them are like, is Jim Crow a man? And why did they get the name Jim Crow? I'm serious.
I don't know. I'll have to find out this week. So watch you're the programmers. Yeah.
So I tell you what, hey, thanks so much. Want you back on the show.
Thank you.
Michelle will be reaching out. Dr. JJ, if you are listening, thank you. But I tell you, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to come on the show. I'd like to thank Dr. Michelle Cooley for putting together another absolutely fantastic show. I'd like to thank our viewers and our listeners for tuning in Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Always dream big, think big, and be big at everything you do. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. It's your life, and we'll see you then.